Well, hello, church marketers. Hopefully you're doing well today. I'm excited to have Hugh here with us. We had a few little technical glitches, but we are off and rolling. Hugh, how are you doing today, man?
We are doing good in Minnesota. Any day there's no snow, you got to be doing good.
In Minnesota, are the mosquitoes out yet?
Yes, they are.
All right, man. Well, I'm glad we got all the tech stuff worked out, and it's super pumped to talk to you today about church growth, church marketing, church leadership. You've got a really cool study that you're doing. So I know as people are jumping on here, why don't you just tell us real quick about this study that you've got going on? And I think we've linked to it as well. So after we're done with the interview, people can go over and check that out.
Sure. We're doing a little short survey on church growth. And it was kind of a little experimental thing. And I was like crossing my fingers. I get 50 people to respond. As of today, I think we're at 585 responses.
Wow.
So we are getting a really good sampling of the population and various types of ministers and church sizes and such, et cetera, and so forth. So we're really excited about that. Also, people are hungry to be better equipped in church growth. The other surprising factor is that 40% of that 583 plus people that are doing the survey actually leave their email and request for more information about church growth.
Cool.
So there's really a strong desire there to be for help and to be equipped better.
Well, I think in the church space, we're pastors, church leaders are always trying to be like, what are some insights? What's some wisdom? What are some ways our church continue to reach out into our community and, grow, impact more people, see more lives change? So I think there's a ton of interest around this topic. So I'm pumped to talk about it. I'm also a sucker for data. Which real quick, before we jump into some of these questions, I want to hear a little bit about your background because if I'm not mistaken, Hugh, the last time we talked, you were saying you come from a business background that's very data-based, data-rich. So, but before I do that too, I want to throw out there, we got a few people jumping on. The question of the day today is, what is your morning beverage? So, Hugh, I've got my Scooter's coffee here. I got a white mocha this morning, a hot white mocha. I don't know why I got a hot white mocha in June, but I did. So, Hugh, what is your what is your morning beverage of choice?
Are you a priest so I can make my confession?
Sure.
Diet Cherry Pepsi.
Diet Cherry Pepsi in the morning. Man, Hugh, you're a wild man. So I see we've got Zach and Jim have jumped on. Why don't you guys throw out there too? What are you drinking this morning? But as they're throwing in some answers, Hugh, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background because you've spent a lot of time in the corporate world. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm a database consultant. By doing cleaner data, better interfaces for accessing the data, et cetera. I've had one client where we saved them $52 million a year.
Whoa!
Client,
whoa! Time out. You just said $52 million a year?
In savings, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my word. Okay, I keep going, but then I've got a follow-up question for you. If you're saving people $50 million a year.
Yeah, another client, $40 million. Another client, I probably saved them about $3 or $4 million, but bigger than that, I saved them $1 billion contract that they were going to lose.
Whoa!
So, pretty heavy data and quality and accuracy is a big component of that. But the other component is accessibility, readability in concise ways that people can make right choices.
Gotcha. Well. I got a follow-up question for you, but Jim is saying his beverage of choice is Mountain Dew. So he's wild too. So we've got a couple wild folks on here. You guys are crazy hitting the hard stuff early in the morning. But okay, so if you're saving corporations millions of dollars, billions of dollars, what are some things that church leaders could learn from your experience in the corporate world?
Data is important.
Yep.
Okay. And the engineering behind it is the incremental things, the little things, and being consistent with them. Okay. For instance, Northwest Airlines saved $1 million a year by the place of a command on a key in the keyboard. So it was like function key 11 was for notes. So when a reservations agent is taking a call and you're telling them, I'm going to fly here, go there, I want this, that, and the other, you're not giving them the information in the same order or format that's on the screen, right? So you jumped ahead and you give them some information. So they need to quickly put that in a notepad and come back to it later. So they had to lift their hand and go up and hit the F11 key. Well, what they found in reservations that there was no use for the square bracket. And so they moved that function to the square bracket, and that saved them $1 million a year.
That's crazy.
Okay. So the rule is you have to save the company at least $1 million.
Okay.
But you can only do it with a single-digit increment. So you can't say, if 50% of the customers bought this extra feature, you have to say 3% or 5% or 4 people a day. It had to be a single-digit increment.
Yeah.
So what single-digit increment can you do on a consistent basis that will have a huge impact?
Interesting. Side note for me, like I went through and paid a lot of money to get my master's in organizational leadership. But I was more coming from the church background with my education, wanting to learn more like what corporations were doing to grow, to help, understand what church leaders could grow. And that idea of, I walked away, like I said, paying a lot of money with the understanding of leaders would be better at leadership if they led and managed with fact, with data, meaning they make decisions with actual data, not just by making hunches. So I paid a lot of money for that insight, Hugh, that you just gave everybody there. So with that in mind, since you've done that for corporations and you've also jumped over in the world of church health, church growth, outreach, evangelism, marketing, have you identified a few of those things, those 1% changes, those little tweaks you can make, a pastor could make, a church leader could make, day in, day out, that would really help them?
Yes. So we did an experiment in Marshall, Minnesota. And there we put a flyer in the newspaper, and the newspaper went out to the whole community. Okay. And then we took a group of 21. I'm a board member at a Bible college, so we took some students from the Bible college and some people from a local church. And we had 21 adults. And we went door to door with the same flyer that we had in the newspaper, okay, asking people if they wanted to have a Bible study in their home. And we got 1 out of every 16 doors, once every 7 minutes, signing up for a Bible study.
Really?
And what the secret sauce was, because we're using the same flyer that they had saw in the newspaper a couple of days ahead, when they saw we had the same flyer in our hand, the person answering the door broke the ice and carried the conversation. They would say, I saw that. Well, that's about. I thought that was cool. What are you doing? And so even the shyest person, all 21 adults, got somebody signed up for a Bible study because the conversation was being carried by the person entering the door instead of you having to say, I'm so, you go through that. And so we did this also in Princeton, Minnesota. And we had a thunderstorm that day. We only had about an hour to go door to door. And I knocked on this door. The lady answers the door. She saw the flyer. She grabbed the information card out of my hand, filled it out, said, I'm going to be gone until next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Call me. I want a Bible study. I didn't even introduce myself.
Wow.
Okay. She was ready. She was prepared. And, there's a little more to that, but number-wise, a good flyer through mail or through newspaper, and then a couple of these other going door to door. It's night and day. So a lot of people, say, oh, we don't knock on doors. So that's because you're a stranger, or they may think you're a Jehovah's Witness. But when they have that flyer and then you match it, you're a warm welcome instead of a cold call.
Gotcha. So in the corporate world, in marketing space, kind of multi-channel marketing, where you take the same kind of brand approach, look, and you drive that through multiple channels. So it's just not one, like you're saying, it's just not a cold knock. You're doing some other things with it. So Is that something pastors and church leaders really should keep in mind if you're going to do, let's say, an invite for Easter, an invite for Christmas, fill in the blank, you're launching a new multi-site location, you need to think through how you can get that message out through multiple mediums, essentially. What do you think?
Correct, right? We know that the number one winner in the gospel is personal invitation, personal evangelism, right? But if you have a pastor have your brand out there, and then when I go to talk to my coworker and I hand him a business card that matches, he'll say, "Oh, and that opens the conversation wide open, right?"
Gotcha.
Right? Instead of me handing him a card, it's like, "Who are you? Where are you from?" All that stuff. He's already been pre-educated. If I can spiritualize it, right? It's like John the Baptist preparing the way for Christ. What can we do to prepare the way for our saints to have greater success at opening doors?
Gotcha. I got a follow-up question to that because, I think in our marketing realm today, there's a lot of emphasis on digital, Facebook ads, digital, maybe billboards. But it seems like a lot of times when I visit with you, you are still a big believer in the personal invitation. And I think the data always comes back and says that personal friend-to-friend invite, empowering your people is always more effective than these other things, especially like if you add some, tips like you're saying. Are there other ways that you're seeing churches are effectively empowering their people to evangelize and invite other people to church?
Yes. So we have a program that we promote in ChurchGrowthInABox.com. We call it the 7x7 program. The concept is it's a postcard where on one side at a consecration service, you have people write down 7 names of people in their lives that they would like to reach this next year for Christ. Then on the back side of that card is 7 steps for building relationships with folks, not teaching the Bible, not dragging them to church, but 7 steps for stronger relationships. Then at the last step, you invite them to either a fellowship group, a Bible study, or it could be the church, however you wanted to implement that component. So the first church that did this with us was on a trajectory of a 300% growth as a result of it. And this is why. We've lost our social skills. People are afraid to talk to people and stuff, right? And so what we do as part of this program, 2 things that we do. One is for the churches that have public prayer requests, we have them encourage the people to hold up their 7x7 cards every time they pray. And remember, those 7s along with the request. It's spiritual peer pressure. And then we encourage the pastor to take 3 or 4 days a week. And here's the single-digit increment. Take 3 or 4 days a week, call 3 people. Now, when they write down those 7 names, get a copy of the card. And you call that person with the card and you say, "Okay, Sue, how's it coming? Were you able to reach Bob? What happened with Bob?" "Well, this, that, and the other." Then you coach them. And you say, "Well, how about this angle? How about that angle?" Okay. So this church, what happened is they had a lady in their church that did not volunteer for anything. She never lifted a hand. She just showed up at church. And she participated in the program. And the first of the 7 steps is to pray for your folks. And not just pray for them to be saved, but pray for their needs, what they're going through in life, be a blessing to them in your prayers, not be selfish in your prayers. And so she prayed and she prayed and she prayed for about 3 weeks. And she was afraid to pick up the phone and make the next contact, like invite them over for dinner or something like that. And so she was praying one day and the phone rings and it's one of the 7x7 people on her list. And this person said, "We haven't talked in a couple of years. And I'm going through a trauma, and I know you're a Christian. I want to know if I can ask you to pray for me."
Wow.
And she says, "I've already been praying." That Sunday, that person came to church and gave their life to Christ. That saint, the next week, was so empowered and so confident that they went door to door, 2 blocks around their neighborhood, invited every family to church, and had 2 brand new families in church the next week.
Wow.
The youth caught on fire and said, "How come the adults are doing 7x7? Why don't we do it?" And this is a small church. So they had 13 young people committed to reaching 100 young people in their community. And this is just in the first few weeks of the program.
Yeah. Man, so cool. And one thing I observe in churches is a church will hear about an idea or see an idea, and they will do it half-heartedly, meaning they just try it, but they don't put the leadership in it, energy. They don't do the things that really make it effective. Like, and one of the big ahas I was hearing you say is the 7x7, and I've seen churches do that in the intentionality. Our church had called them like a friend focus card, but the intentionality of then not just doing the cards, but then having leadership follow up with people. I think that's a great example of, here's a good idea, but here's a good idea executed and implemented well, as opposed to just done half-hearted.
Right. So we have so many programs that we are doing without strategy. Right. So we hear that somebody did a concert in the park and had great success. So we go to the park and sing. No strategy. Right. Right. Well, one that's really abused is Vacation Bible School. How many people have Vacation Bible School but don't know the strategy behind Vacation Bible School? Yeah. The strategy behind Vacation Bible School is to win the parents.
Yep.
And if you don't have the strategy to connect the parents and follow up with the parents and that type of thing, you are missing a huge opportunity. In fact, there's a medium-sized church organization. I know that's all they do for growing their churches, and it's really successful. A lot of us teach the kids. We teach the kids. We want the kids, and we do. We want to become Christians, but the strategy is the connection with the parents before, during, and after.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think there's in the church world, especially in evangelism and outreach, marketing space, there's a whole lot of activity without a whole lot of strategy. And I'm seeing that in churches that we work with, where you have a church that is activity to death. They've got so many good intentioned things going on, but they never are like, we're not getting the people from the good intentioned things to make discipleship decisions or to make a decision to come to church. So there's all this activity without the strategy. So as a follow-up question to that, what do you see are some great growth opportunities when it comes to strategies that churches can use?
Well, not being afraid of connecting with people. A lot of that personal evangelism, supporting it. So a lot of times the pulpit, we preach personal evangelism and demand our people go out and do it, but yet we're not connecting and have a strategy with them, a coaching or follow up or whatever. We're looking for that one person who's smart enough to figure it out on their own. And I think that's and then after so many bad experiences, people just back off. Yeah. We had an outreach director at our church at one time, and I showed up to support him, and all they decided to do, because they didn't have any time to plan, was make signs and jump up and down on the corner, and then they come back and testify about how many people honked at them.
Oh man!
But here's another strategy. Okay, our church is on an interstate, heavy traffic area, and the number one source for new people in our church that stay long term, okay, is landscaping.
Really?
They drive by. It looks so nice. They say, that looks like a nice church that I would want to join. And they walk in. We get more people from landscaping than we do from our website or door-to-door knocking or anything like that.
Interesting. Side note on that, the church that I spent a decade in, really growing up in ministry, James River Church in Ozark, Missouri, and they've got multiple locations now. But Pastor John was always a really big believer in landscaping, because his angle was always, if we don't take care of the outside of our church, how can people feel like they can come trust us with their spiritual life, essentially? So I mean, James River is normally the parking lot, the landscaping, everything's immaculate, but I've never really heard it articulated as far as a outreach strategy. That's fascinating.
Right. You and I we have roots in Azusa Street, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And a lot of people want to talk about, the prayer and the spirit falling and all the good stuff. And it did. Okay. It did. Just real quick, it takes the spiritual product, it takes culture, and it takes systems to grow. So I'm never downplaying the spiritual. But we get hit a lot of times on systems. People say, no, it's a prayer. And, and they don't want to be involved in the systems. But they want a revival like Azusa Street. Okay. Azusa Street had sandwich boys on the corner between the mission and the train station, where Everybody in the San Francisco earthquake was coming into town. And they were flagging them and pointing them to the mission. They ran the largest Christian newsletter at the time, and then it went around the world advertising Azusa Street. A lot of people, if you read the testimonies that were saved at Azusa Street, they got the newsletter, they wondered about it, they came to America, they went down there and checked it out and had an experience. If you want a Azusa Street type revival, marketing is a big part of it.
I've never heard that. I love this. I love visiting with people that have stories even from our church history that talk about the passion for outreach and evangelism as the foundation for why we do things like marketing. Because I think marketing oftentimes gets a bad rap and like, oh, that's not spiritual. But when we look back, I know at my spiritual roots, the pastors that, I grew up in a church that's now over 100 years old. And they were doing crazy marketing stuff long before it became, cool for like new hip churches. I mean, I could tell stories, some really crazy stories of what they were doing to get the word out. But it's cool to hear. Like, I've never heard some of those perspectives. And I think it would be a fascinating book for people to put together, like the marketing strategies throughout church history,
right.
And what those look like. So that's really fascinating. So I got another follow-up question for you, because I think church leaders either watching this live or watching the replay or on YouTube or wherever you're watching this, inevitably they start hearing some of these ideas. They hear you, Hugh, say you need better systems, you need to be more strategic. But then they say, but Hugh, I'm busy. I'm watching this on the way actually to a hospital visit. I probably shouldn't even have YouTube up watching this, but I'm trying to sneak it in and get better at this. So, Hugh, my question to you is, how in the world does a busy church pastor actually implement some of these systems and ideas?
Sure. That's where my current focus and burden is. So I'm the CEO of a company called Finish Line Planner, and we developed a planning piece of software, and the name of it, Finish Line, the goal is to get the thing done. It's not nice. How fancy the reports and charts are getting there. And so we developed a simple planner. And we had numerous churches and pastors sign up for it and pay us $180 a year for this planner. And they renewed their subscription for 2 or 3 years, but never created a plan. They knew they needed, but they don't have the time. Okay? Oh. So we've inverted that. In this fall, we're going to roll out ChurchGrowthInABox.com, which is the reverse, where we do the planning for you, and then you can decide how to implement it. Okay?
Love it.
So we're designing this, and one of the first feedbacks I got from our launch group was there's a ton of good content out there, and pastors can spend easily 4 hours a day consuming good content and enhancing their ministry in their church, but they don't have 4 hours. They don't have time to watch an hour video or 30-minute video, those type of things. And so we stopped what we're doing and went backwards and redesigned our UX, our screens, right? So here's what we're doing with Church Growth in a Box. We're going to give you the description, the title, and who this is for. What kind of church would use this particular technique. And then an outline, a high-level outline, probably about 6 or 7 items and time stamps in the video. At which point you say, oh, that particular section sounds interesting, I'll jump to it. I got time for that. Or I'll come back later and jump to that. So in less than 5 minutes, a pastor can make a decision, hey, I'm onto this is cool for us, or this doesn't fit us. Okay?
Gotcha.
And then we have a build your team button where you can bring people on and say, okay, Bobby, this looks really exciting. Once you watch it and stuff, and then get back to me. So now this pastor is getting a lot more done in a few minutes and assigning it to the right people, making the right decisions, not having to watch our longest videos over a little bit over an hour. Most of them are under 20 minutes. But now it's a valuable resource. And then once they watch the video, like the 7x7, we've got one on streaming, we got one on the 1 in 16 doors knocking thing we did. We also then have a library of digital tools. So we've already got graphics ready to go. You just fill in your church name and times. We've got administrative tools for forms and tracking. We got spreadsheets, all that. So now you can download it and give it to Bob and Sam and say, guys, go do this. And you just save yourself months of planning meeting. So in 5 minutes, a pastor is getting fully equipped to strategically do church growth. So that's how we respond to that when they're so busy, don't have time. We're trying to refine that, so that it comes out in the fall. Pastors should get out and get their church moving.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Get the tactics, let them choose what fits their church. And I think one of the keys that you're talking about is empowering your team and empowering other people to do that. I know the pastors that I'm talking with inevitably will end a coaching or a consulting call, and they'll be like, woo, like, oh my word, now my to-do list is like forever long to go implement this strategy. And my response is always, your main to-do is to go find other people and empower them to do these tactics. Right. I think that has to be the top of the list if your church is going to grow, is empowering other people. So, man, I think that's brilliant. And let me just say this too. One of the ways that you can get connected with Hugh, can get connected with the Finish Line Planner, Church Growth in a Box, is to take that assessment, right, Hugh? And we've linked to that. That will do a couple things. One, you're going to get updates. Hugh can get you connected for those that want to go deeper in that. And then another is you're going to start also helping out the assessment. So Hugh's initiative there. And then what's cool too is, Hugh, you're putting findings together based on these assessments. So you're able to look at hundreds of churches and put findings together. I'm curious, out of the churches that have already taken it, I think, did you say you've already had a few hundred take it, right?
583.
Yeah. Are there any trends that you're already starting to see emerge from the survey so far?
Yeah. So the biggest trend is churches are saying that personal evangelism is their weakest area, and developing leaders is their stronger suite. Okay?
Really?
Then they say, we asked them, what are they going to invest in this next year, right? 50% of them say they're going to invest in leadership training.
Okay.
Right? So, but if you're doing good leadership training, you should be training your leaders to evangelize. Right? And that's what we're doing, Church Growth in a Box. Now we got leaders who say, okay, here's the tools of how to connect the people, do the follow-up with the people, help them, and make that circle. So that's the biggest thing, is that they're really strong on leadership. But yet they identify personal evangelism as the hurt, the need that they have.
Man, that's fascinating. So, and for those of you guys watching, even if you're watching the replay, I'd be curious. Obviously, go take the assessment yourself as well. But does that resonate with you? I'm thinking through the churches that I work with. I think now that you say that, I think most of them would raise their hand and say, you know what, personal evangelism is not our strong suit. I hear all the time from pastors and church leaders, like, how in the world do we get our people to actually invite people to church? Like, what's the secret sauce to that? But what's interesting is that churches would respond that leadership development is one of their strongest suits. So to me, that seems a little bit like an oxymoron, because I would imagine if they're really good at developing leaders, what type of leaders are they developing if those leaders aren't discipling and reaching other people? So I'm a little bit confused. So have you processed that and come up with any conclusions? Like, how can those two things exist? I'm
not sure as far as defining the problem. There's probably a lot of pride in there. People want to grow, and you do want to grow your saints. Leadership is very key. So if you can imagine a simple church growth circle, it would start off with the breaking of the ice of contacting people, finding people, and the little PR. And then the second quarter of that then would be engaging those people, having a relationship with them. They're on your email list. They're getting the newsletter. They're one of the groups you have on Facebook that you can advertise to, and you have a relationship there. And start your disciple making. And then you've got the congregation. They come to church, become a saint, give their life to Christ. And then you start them as a volunteer, and you develop them as a leader. Well, then those leaders need to follow the circle through and come back and start planting seeds and making contacts, and keep that thing going. And it's that fourth quarter, the leadership development, that hinders so many churches from growing. Either they're not developing leaders, or they're not developing leaders for the right cause, or as they're developing leaders, they encounter that horizontal hostility. And what horizontal hostility is people who have the same passion, same goal, trip up and start having conflict. Okay, that conflict is harder to speak, to communicate, and to heal the hurting than it is to deal with a sinner, a drunk, somebody with abortion, or whatever. It's easier to communicate with them than it is to communicate with your brother, right? And so the church culture plays a key role in that. So you have to get through, do development the leaders, have the focus on disciple making, and deal with those horizontal hostilities in order to have a healthy growth cycle. But a lot of times we're pushing out more information, pushing out ads and stuff, and not completing the circle, because then the pastor's overworked.
Yeah. So I'm curious too, going back to that biggest weakness of personal evangelism, and then I've got a question coming in here, but do you have any insights for how pastors can start getting better or have their church start improving? So like a year from now, they can come back and actually say, we've made progress. Our church is stronger with evangelism.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of things going on in that arena. Of course, the 7x7, I think, is the simplest and biggest, at least cost. To do a 7x7 program, you're talking under $50 easily. Gotcha. And that's for printing up those cards, Everything else is free. So that's a big one. I think every pastor should at least evaluate and come up with some version of that. Now, I don't have the answers to everything. My goal is to put tools in the toolbox for the pastor, right? So when I show them a program and I show them the 20 steps, whatever, they may take 12 of those and customize it and do it their own way. And they need to do that, because I don't know the spiritual situation. I don't know the culture that they're dealing with. I don't know the size of the church, those type of things, right? But that 7x7 is a good one. I don't know if I can get this one on the camera or not. This is my own personal invite card. This is not cool. A press card, right? So we're going to be doing a program showing you some techniques for different kinds of business cards that you can do, and getting these in people's hands for $13. You can get 100, and so if somebody invites 100 people to church, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
On the back side, I've got information about the church, but I do not invite them to Sunday school. I do not invite them to worship service. What it says is Sunday 10 a.m. Sunday a.m. 10:30, special classes for teens and kids. Sunday p.m. at 6:30, lifting music and life-changing preaching. Wednesday p.m. 7:30, biblical insights for life and special kids programs. Gotcha. We call it, 10:30 Sunday school, 10:30 Sunday nights worship. We don't explain what they're getting. So this is another, I think, really good personal. Now people can be proud of themselves, and they're inviting a friend to church. They're not inviting them to some program, some corporation. It's more friendly.
That's cool. We're getting a comment here, and Be Live is struggling right now inside a Facebook group, so I apologize for the lack of a picture. But the question is, what are your thoughts when a church is great at actually getting people in the doors and connected in the ministry team, but actually their problem is the opposite? So their problem is we're good at going wide. We're not as good at developing leaders from those people getting in the doors. Any thoughts for the opposite problem?
So you've got to develop people for who they are and their personality and their level, not what you want them to be. Okay? So you got to find what their passion is, what they can offer, what they would like to do, what kind of time they have available, and create the leadership position for them instead of trying to create them for the leadership position. So there's a pastor in Arkansas. We had a guy who was very simple, faithful to church. Don't think you can trust him with much, because he just doesn't have the facilities. And he came to the pastor after church one night and just was upset because he went to the restroom and they were out of toilet paper. He says, you know what? Let me show you how you do this. So he trained him. He took the time and said, now here's a closet, and I'm trusting you with this key. Okay? So you don't share this key with anybody else. This is your own key. Here's in the closet. Here's the toilet paper. Now, if you can come to church 15 minutes early, you go to the ladies' restroom, you knock on the door, and you holler that you're coming in.
Really loud.
Yeah. And then to get no response, you cautiously go in, make sure the toilet paper's there, then go in the men's and make sure the toilet paper. That guy just got elected president of the United States. He is so proud of his job. He takes care of that key. Nobody touches that key. And every church service, there's always toilet paper, and the pastor doesn't have to worry about it anymore, right? Now, if the pastor put an org chart together, he probably wouldn't have had that on his org chart.
The toilet paper guy?
Right? But he looked at the person and found out what their passion is and who they are, right? And then created the position for them. So I think that's what it is. You got to look at who you people are, what skills are they bringing, what time available, and then create it for them.
I love that. Yeah, I think in general, if you can help people accomplish their dream or God's dream that God has put on their heart, the giftings and mix in the context of the local church, to me, I think that's a win-win. So I really resonate with that. I feel like far too often we look at people as widgets, not as how can we come alongside and help. My job is to bring out God's dream and God's best in their life. And we put in a lot of ways, we kind of put our vision. Now, I understand that could be tricky because our vision a lot of times is the church vision, but I think those can work together. You can see God's vision for that person come alive inside the context of the vision of the church. So great stuff. I've got one final question here, and then Hugh, I want to throw it to you to see where else people can connect with you. But I know we've covered a lot here, but anything else that you would say as maybe one of the top challenges pastors face when it comes to church growth, and any insights to overcome that challenge? Is it the time thing that we've talked about? Is it personal evangelism? Is it empowering people? What would you say is the top challenge? And then what can a pastor do to start overcoming that challenge?
Actually, I think it's fear.
Really? Okay.
Fear. Because we're mature people, we don't show it. We're uncertain about, pushing the button and doing it. Is it for me? Is it, their church got something I don't have? It really is fear. And do those small things, those incremental small things that are just really accessible. For instance, for me, growing Church Growth in a Box, if you've seen some of the groups, I post a color post question on Monday mornings and Thursday mornings. And that has driven a survey up to 583 people. It's driven my brand new launch group. It's only a couple of weeks old to 188 people. It's driven our beta test group to over 125 people. But if I try to accomplish any of those goals in one day or 1 week or one program, it's just a little bit every day is adding up. So we do that.
Yeah. One. Let me throw this out to you too as well. If people want to follow up, get connected with you, make sure that they can either take the assessment or get the results when the assessment is all done and finished, and what they want to see your final results and insights. And how do they get connected with you? How do they take the survey? And then how do they stay around to make sure that they get the update when the results are in?
Sure. They can go to the link and do the survey and leave their email there. They can also be on our wait list for our beta test group by going to ChurchGrowthInABox.com. It's ChurchGrowthInABox.com. You can sign up there and be on the beta group. You can also search for the Church Growth in a Box launch group on Facebook and join the group there. Those are the three main avenues for getting in. And we'll hope to go to beta testing here in about 2 weeks, and then have a functional product in the fall. Also, some of our other associates who are involved in church growth, we would invite them to join us in the survey, promoting it to their audience, and we'll share the survey with them and connect up. These people that they're leaving their emails and asking for more information about church growth, there's different categories, leadership being the biggest one. So I need help in delivering solutions to them. So we're looking for people that want to help us with that service the churches with church growth. I don't know everything. Obviously, I don't. I'm weak on social marketing, which you're strong on. And,
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I know it's an honor to serve alongside guys like yourself. When you're talking about leadership, immediately coming to my mind, the Hardy guys, Dick and Jonathan over there at leaders.church, Michael with Church Fuel. There's some good ones out there on the leadership deal that can really connect. But it's neat to see guys like yourself that are coming alongside the church to help us get better at evangelism, outreach, marketing, personal evangelism, leadership, discipleship, all that sort of stuff, because the church world, we really need it. So we're excited to get the assessment results as well. So if you're in the church marketers group, be sure you help Hugh out in this initiative. Take the assessment above. The link should be above somewhere or below somewhere, depending on how you're watching this. And take that assessment. And then Hugh, we'll have to do a follow-up inside the group here to tell everybody once the results are in what you found out and kind of what we can do based on those results. By the way, side note, when do you feel like you're going to take a kind of, do you have a number, or are you saying, hey, by the end of 2018, we're going to do a findings? What's your thought there as far as timeline for the results?
Probably the end of the summer.
Okay, cool.
Reason is I'm trying to push for 3,000 because 3,000 is a statistical significant number. And so you've got right on, some real stuff. Like the first 50, probably some cool results, but not nothing that you can broadcast. Also, I'm thinking that on the network of people that I network with in the church growth area, you can also go to the Finish Line Planners channel on Facebook.
Okay.
And we've got over 50 videos there. We have FaithX with Data Story. If you're into any church promotion or marketing at all, Data Story, you got to know about it. It is a little expensive. It's $2,500 a year per church, but you're going to get a ton out of it. It's the most thorough marketing study you can do for your church. And then,
wait, real quick, what is it called? That marketing study?
The FaithX is the group, and the tool is called Data Story. Okay, and what Data Story does is it finds the 15-minute drive from your church. So it makes a map like a Google map, but it's got all these fingers in it because depending on how the highways and stuff are laid out, it figures the 15-minute drive. 70% of the people that are going to attend your church are going to be within 15 minutes, not miles. Okay, then it drills in and says, what age groups do we have? What incomes do we have? Where are the growth opportunities? And the two growth opportunities, of course, is like a new subdivisions growing out, people moving into town. But also when there's a diversity flip. So you'll see that a certain area is growing in Chinese. That's another opportunity. And so Data Story pinpoints these out. Then also pinpoints the churches out around you and how that overlays. So you can say, well, this whole area nobody else is doing. It's our area. These other areas we're overlaying with other churches, and you can plan accordingly.
Wow. Real quick, does that cost money? What?
Yeah, that's $2,500 a year per church, or $7,500 for a region, like a section or district.
Okay, gotcha. So it's an investment, but the data is really, really powerful, it sounds like.
And it's current data. They always refreshing the data. It's always current. It's a top of the line. Also on the Finish Line Planner page, you'll see Truth Advertising. Every minister needs to know about them. They are the ultimate postcard mailing advertising company. They've got hundreds of testimonies on their websites of churches talking 50 to 200 new visitors from a postcard mailing. And so if you design a postcard and you send it to Truth Advertising, they will not print it. They make you do a study. They analyze your goals. They'll help you design it. They make it work.
Gotcha.
And they do hundreds and thousands of churches. They've been doing it for like 12 years. I mean, they know what they're doing when it comes to marketing. Is
there any big insight from your perspective on direct mail pieces that actually get them to work?
Church or sermon series.
Okay.
That meets a need of your community.
Okay.
Most of the times that is in marriage, relationship, raising children, careers. And you do a sermon series, those knock it out of the park. Second would be Vacation Bible School as a strategic plan. Postcard mailings are really good for that.
Okay.
And that's covered in the video there that we do with Truth Advertising. And a ton of others. So those are two really big ones I think every pastor needs to have in their pocket, even if they're not using them, just to know that they're there and available. And these guys are the serious guys in those contexts. So I'm big on that networking because I can't do it all.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I would say this, Hugh, once we're done, why don't you put the links below for those different, the FaithX, all the stuff that you kind of mentioned, Finish Line Planner, the assessment, Church Growth in a in a box. Maybe put that all in one comment so people can, as they're going through this, to kind of link out to those the video interviews that you mentioned. And then we'll do the same over on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to take this interview, put it over on the Social Church YouTube channel. So if you're interested in sharing it with other church leaders outside the Church Marketers group, we're going to enable you to do that via the YouTube channel as well. So, man, Hugh, this has been fascinating stuff. Sorry about all the tech issues, but we'll get this uploaded to YouTube as well for people who I know we had a few little tech glitches here along the way, but that's life, and we'll deal with it. And excited to have you back to talk about the results as well. Anything else you want to say as we're kind of wrapping up here?
Just encourage everybody. Keep on doing it. It's pastoring can be very discouraging, but I think there's opportunities, and hopefully us coming along the side of the pastors can help some of those pastors overcome some of the discouragement that they're facing.
Yeah, that and a little bit of cherry Pepsi. Is that what you want?
Diet cherry Pepsi.
Diet cherry Pepsi and some encouragement, a little bit of prayer, and you're off to the races for a good day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure. Again, Hugh, thanks so much for being a part of the Church Marketers group. I think you were one of the early ones in the group, and you've always, helped make the group better. So thanks for being a part of it. And we're going to be cheering you on for everything you've got going on, and then excited to have you back to talk about the results.
Yeah. One bonus tip, or two bonus tips. Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Facebook check-in, right?
Okay.
Have your saints check in and comment why they're coming to church, what they're excited about at church, right? And then at the end of the service, have them testify, go back and comment on their check-in, right? What happened in the service and how they were blessed.
Nice.
I have a church that went from 300 to 3,000, and all their marketing was Facebook check-in.
Whoa.
Nothing else. Okay. So this pastor, another pastor who also does it and has success, he went to the bank to do some financing for the church. And he's talking to the lady. She goes, "Oh, I know all about your church." "Well, how do you know about it?" "Well, my friend's always checking in and checking out." She says, "This about this?" It really spreads the word, opens those doors for those conversations and such. So check in. The second one, live streaming. If you're live streaming in your sermon, when you end it and you're making your altar call, putting out the challenge, talk to the people at home and make them this offer. Call this number, and we will set up a personal disciple maker to answer your biblical questions, to pray for you, and to walk with you through life's journey.
Wow.
Why can't we do that without them coming in the door?
Yeah.
Who else offers that? Instead of, my ideals, my doctrine, my theology, shove it down your throat. Say, we're going to connect you up with a personal friend.
Yeah. I love that. And again, Hugh, as we're going through this, the thing that keeps coming back to me is these great ideas, but the small little things that you do to actually make them work, right? Because you say live stream, and the vast church world is being like, yeah, we're going to do live stream, but they've got to think, how do we actually engage people on the live stream, right? The strategy behind the live stream to actually call people to discipleship, or like you're saying, check-in. Like you're going to have every pastor be like, yeah, we kind of do the check-in deal, but you're saying, check in, you got to execute the strategy well. Then at the end of your service, encourage people to go back and comment, testify. So it keeps coming back to this. What I hear over and over again is, don't just do the tactic, have a strategy and then implement it well, go over and above so that it actually works for your church, not that you're just doing another activity. So, man, I think that's a great insight and a great reminder that I'm walking away with, saying, man, we got to, if we're going to do something, we need to go over and above and do it really well and do it strategically.
Something that doesn't take a lot of time.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So this is an example. My son, when he was 13, is his computer brain, and created live streaming before there was live streaming, and had our services being streamed. And he had a Google Maps, so he knew everybody who was watching and where. Okay.
Wow.
We had somebody on the International Space Station watch our church streaming.
What?
Yeah. Okay. So, but what is that? What good is that? I mean, the gospel's good, right? And hopefully it blessed them and that type of thing. But that is not strategic for growing our church, right? Yeah. But stopping and saying, hey, call this number, we'll set up a disciple maker with you, is a whole different world. So people say, oh, we got 500 people watching our stream from where? Africa, you know, and things like that. So, yeah. That's what we do at Church Growth in a Box. We lay that out for you, right? I'm just giving you little nibbits, but I can stream it. We'll give you 20 of these little nibbits that cost you nothing, that you just got to plan and execute. The search service that you're already doing, this is not something extra, you know, and it'll make a difference.
Yeah, well, be sure you're, because as church marketers, those little ideas are a huge help. So be sure you keep peppering those in the group as well, because that's a big, I think that's a big aha. And I think pastors, what's funny is a lot of pastors will look at the numbers and they'll be like, we've got more people watching the live stream than we do sitting in our service. Mm-hmm. But then at the same token, they're ignoring those people. They don't ever talk to them. They don't ever acknowledge that they're there. They don't ever call them to action or engage with them. For most intents and purposes, the live stream for a lot of churches, the people around in the community are just kind of passive viewers looking in, as opposed to the church calling them to be a part and acknowledging that they're there. So, man, now you're getting me kind of all fired up here, Hugh.
Yeah.
So I love it.
That's how my brain works. I got those Rubik's Cube up there, and I got trained at Northwest Airlines. Single digit increment making $1 million difference.
I love it. Well, hopefully as church leaders can learn from this, can walk away, what is going to be the one thing that you're going to take away and make improvements in. You may not make your church $52 million, but if it helps reach the next 50 people, then it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. A lot of money's wasted in marketing because there's no strategy behind it, and then pastors get discouraged.
Yep, yeah. That's true. That's true. All right, Hugh, I'm back to my white mocha. Get back and drink some Pepsi. It's always fun chatting, man.
Thank you.
All right. God bless.
All right.